Okay, so yesterday I did a little bit on alliances. And so I want to recap alliances, and I want to do a little bit of what we call sacred geometry, because what I'm going to try to do is segue you into the same model, the mother, father, child triad, but now for relationships, okay? So first, let's do a little bit on alliances as a recap, but get to watch the video I posted yesterday. They're very short, because it was only about an hour. And we'll sort of recap so you have some information. So what is alliance? What does that word mean?
A union?
When we hear in the news an ally.
Yeah, exactly. Like when two countries are, they come together to bomb another country. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah. They
Not
form an
untrue.
alliance, like.
Okay, so alliances, yes, tend to be a party of two or more that have a common interest, and they may bully or gang up against, in your scenario, other countries. Well, we come from alliances. Our entire foundation is about alliances. So let's start from the beginning. What happens before conception? You come from what?
The galaxies?
Okay, wholeness, the
Yeah.
cosmos, whatever you want to call it, okay? So we come from wholeness, and then what happens when your parents get together?
They conceive.
Not yet.
No.
Yeah, they have an alliance, but that's not what I'm getting at. Let's just redo the model. So you come from wholeness. You're a little angel sitting in heaven. Da-da-da. Okay? You don't have a body, you're just this soul hanging out with God and the angels, okay? Whatever you want to call it. Then your parents do what?
They come together and conceive.
They conceive you. There's
Yeah,
conception. Okay, so now your parents have sex, and there's a conception. At conception, this wholeness, what happens to the wholeness?
It's not whole, I guess.
Exactly, it has a crack.
Yeah.
Okay, that becomes your subconscious. The crack becomes your subconscious. At the moment of the conception, you get the beginning level of your subconscious. What happens at the moment of conception and the subconscious creation? What does the child, because now it's a baby, it's a fetus, he's in the egg, in the womb. What happens when that child is in the womb?
Aside from like developing.
Yes. What's he developing?
Well, little by little, each part of the body and stuff.
Okay, there's going to be physical development, but we're talking about the mind. How does the child develop his subconscious mind? Why is it important to understand that we come from wholeness, and once we're conceived, there's a crack in the system. What is that crack?
Isn't it
Okay, but trauma from what?
from both parents?
Exactly.
Each one gives.
Absolutely.
The
Each
origin
parent
story,
has problems, and it becomes the thread or the origin story for that fetus. So the crack is the origin story, and it's a crack or a thread. And this thread is going to last their whole lifetime, and it's going to build all through them. So just as they're building their cellular structure, weaved within their cells is the thread of their subconscious crack, the origin story.
Could we call that the DNA?
The DNA is the physical part, but you can
Right.
call it emotional or subconscious or shit DNA. I don't care. You can call it. You can name your stuff what you want. I'm just telling you what I name my stuff. Your theory, of course, that's part of it. You're going to borrow something from someone else and give it your own twist.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing. We're recycling thoughts.
Okay.
That's it. I might have taken this one, and this one. You might take that one, this one, and this one.
And
that's your theory, and this is mine, and you put your own name and slap on it a name, and there you have your theory. Because there's no new thoughts.
Right.
So just at the beginning of the subconscious, it begins where? And there's 4 levels. What are the 4 levels? The first, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
We're going to play a game in a little while, but I wanted to do a little recap on a lecture I posted yesterday. So we're just doing a little review. So how does the subconscious begin? The first answer is on the board. Ladies, think. You've heard me say this 100 times. What happens the minute the parents have sex?
Story begins.
Story.
Okay.
Story.
Your origin story, yes. Okay, so the subconscious origin story. You take the crap of your mom and dad, and it becomes your mind. What's the second step to development of the subconscious? After the conception, what's part 2? This should roll off your tongue. I say this 100 times a week. Conception, pregnancy, what else? Birth,
And then 0 to 7.
and then 0 to 7. Good morning. We're going to play a game. I'm just recapping some stuff. And yesterday I posted a lecture on alliances. So I want to just recap that, but I would like for you guys to watch it. Okay, so we come from wholeness. We do not have a body. We are whatever you want to call yourself. It's everyone's individual idea. God, angel, spirit, soul, whatever. Your parents have sex. At conception, you finally, from wholeness, become cracked. You get a body. You're now in the womb, the beginnings of the body, the heartbeat, whatever. And right there, your conception, origin story, your thread, your bad bucket, your dick in a box, whatever you want to call it, begins. Okay? And then in pregnancy, you get your emotional state. Birth, you get the traumas of how you're going to enter into the next stages. And 0 to 7, you get your actual narrative. The story you're going to tell for the rest of your life about how unhappy you are, whatnot. Then what happens? You are now born. What happens? Just what happens in a normal thing? What happened when you took your son home? I use such basic language, I'm not tricking you.
It was very unreal, and I had no idea what I had created.
Okay, but what did you do? Let's talk about what you did. What happens when they hand you your baby?
You hug them.
Okay, you hug them, and then they put you in a wheelchair, they stick you in your car, in the car seat, and you go home, and you're like, oh fuck, what am I supposed to do with this 6-pound alien? Okay? So now we move to the house. The 0 to 7 story is going to begin. And in an ideal situation, I know that everyone is different, but in an ideal situation, who is at the house?
Mother, father, and child.
The mother, the father, and the child. Okay? So now we brought the baby home from the hospital. We don't know what the hell to do. The baby's crying and no one knows what he needs. Diaper, milk, arms, and the journey begins. What happens and why the word alliance is so important. Alliances with parents and children is actually somewhat of a misnomer because it comes from the word word ally. And like Paula said, it's a couple of countries that are planning to perhaps attack another country or get together like in the EU and like help each other out of debt or things like that. But in the mother, father, child sort of triad or dynamic, you don't necessarily have allies.
It's like,
True?
yeah, no.
I mean, you can have allies, but you may also end up having like dissidents and people that are going to harm you. So this is one of the biggest misconceptions, that your parents love you what?
Unconditional.
Unconditionally. They may or they may not. So now you're home and you're expecting a cunita, you're expecting clean diapers, warm milk, and what happens? They put you in that cuna and you might have to cry for 20 hours. Do you know that in Russia there was an orphanage? So many people were giving their babies up that they would tape the babies' mouths to stop hearing them cry. The abuse that babies go through, not besides the fact that we don't know what we're doing, just genuinely, just we're ignorant as mothers and fathers. I'm talking about real pain. Kids that are slapped, thrown on the floor,
I've seen like videos of moms
Shaken.
shaking them and
shut up, shut up.
yeah.
It is a horrible thing. We cannot assume, and we're not dealing with dysfunction. We're not dealing with personality disorders. We're just talking about normal, quote unquote, development. Your parents are there, they take you home, and they're trying their best. It's very fragile. And if you already come from 9 months of pretty intense trauma, now you're out of the womb, they bitch slap you at the delivery room, they scrub the shit out of you. I was watching an episode of Friends with my daughter the other day where Rachel and Ross have their baby, and they take her out, and then 2 seconds later, oh, Emma's all wrapped. I said to Sophia, that is not the way it works. I said, they scrub that sucker, they're picking, they're doing an APGAR score, they're squeezing blood. It's horrible, it's so traumatic. The first time I saw that, I was like, oh, the poor kid has already gone through all this trauma and now can't even get like a rest. So there's a lot of pain and trauma in the birthing process. And then you're taken home by these two people that you're clueless, they're clueless. Oh shit, this is a disaster. An absolute disaster. You get screened more if you're going to buy a puppy at the Humane Society than if you're going to be a parent.
Yes.
You get screened more if you want a medical marijuana card or a weapons permit than if you want to be a parent. No wonder we're all fucked up.
Then there should be licenses. My personal
There should, you get a fishing license. You don't even get a license to parent.
Yeah.
It's really crazy, okay? So you get home and supposedly you have these two adults that are supposed to be your allies and help you grow into the world. The thing is that each one of these people has their own bag of trash. And it's going to come out on who?
On the child.
Why?
Because my belief is like sometimes when the mom and dad have already had fights in the past and they, the mom gets pregnant, the father wasn't expecting it, so they both take it out on the kid while they're both having issues with
Okay, well, not every child was born
No,
in that
yeah.
in that condition,
But-
but basically, bullies bully the weakest of the pack.
Yeah.
And we are bullies, people. If you are a parent, you are a bully. The other day I was walking my dog, and my dog is 3 pounds,
Yeah.
and he
So
is a
cute.
bully.
He's so cute.
And I'm walking with him, he's like, "Ah," and this cat who is doing nothing to him. And I'm like, Dino, you're such a bully. And I'm like, just like your mom. And I just had this flashback to when my kids were little, because we used to live in the same development when they were little, and I started crying. fucking bully. We are bullies to our kids because they're the weakest one in the system. It's just the reality. And bully doesn't have to come with hitting, because I didn't hit my kids. I screamed. My bully was the screaming. Bully can also be when you don't let your children grow. Oh, don't go, stay with me. That Oedipus or Electra complex, that's bully. Because you're not allowing that person to have the life that they're meaning to have because you're too worried about your own needs. So parents are bullies because they're finding out, oh, now there's this little alien who can meet my own needs. So meet mom and dad's needs. The parents are bullies, and it starts. Ever see two bullies on a playground?
Oh my God.
Yes.
What are they like?
They
They team
well
up.
with kids
They team up,
yeah.
Or they're terrorizing like on their own.
Right, and they're in competition. I've got more terrorizing than you. I got more lunch money than you. And this is what ends up happening.
I'm gonna knee him in the back.
Okay? If they teamed up, which could be, but if the mother and the father actually teamed up to meet the needs of the child, it would be a very different dynamic. Instead, the mother is like, oh shit, I didn't have my needs met. Now, by the way, this is subconscious, this is not consciously. Now I have this baby, I can make this baby mine, I've never had anything of my own, I've never had anyone to love me, oh my God. I'm gonna make this baby my baby, and I'm gonna suffocate this baby, and this baby's gonna be my life and my reason to live. That is a bully. Because that means that you're not letting your kid have a life of his own. Then you've got dad over here, who's like, damn it, Marie. Anyone know that reference? You guys don't know that reference? Breaking Bad?
Oh,
yeah.
Damn it, Marie! And dad is like, damn it, Marie! We need to have sex! We need to go out! Does he really need 500 Legos? And the dad is like, oh shit, they have an alliance. My wife and my kid are a team. And I'm on the outside,
That's what my husband says.
okay? Those alliances are not good. Or, dad, Rebecca's not here, is a truck driver, just as an example. Dad works a lot. Mom is home all day with the kid. This was me. Daddy comes home at the hour that he has to come home from the hospital, and all of a sudden it's party! And I spent the whole day with these kids. Finally I get into bed, and he opens the garage, and they jump out of bed, and they start playing at 2 in the morning, or midnight, or whatever time.
No.
Alliance children with dad. Disney dad, playful dad, fun dad, non-disciplinary dad. And I'm like, fuck, I'm the outside. It is never, ever, ever a healthy situation when one of the parents, I don't care if they're divorced, I don't care if they both work at home, if they both work out of the house, I don't even care if one of the parents is dead. It is never a healthy situation when the parents don't have an alliance. And the alliance is this way or this way. That is going to cause chaos, confusion, problems. And this is why we are triangulated in our life. Every single person comes from triangulation. And you did not have an alliance in the right order. It was either mother, child, father, outcast, father, child, mother, outcast.
Yeah, I think this one.
These are dysfunctional. And this is the pattern you're going to create. Because what's the first rule of the model? The first one, you guys need to have these 7 steps down. Just for my ego, if nothing else.
Person, place, and
Yeah.
situation.
Yes, every person, place, thing, or situation is representative of your parents. Therefore, okay, and this is super important because this is going to be the basis of the model in relationships, like we saw with Rebecca the other day.
Yeah, I have that same thing.
Okay? You're going to repeat every situation this way or this way, depending on who you have your alliance with. So, oftentimes, and we'll just pick on her, she had this alliance. Mother and her, by virtue of her dad being gone all the time. The person, place, thing, or situation is most of the time going to be the parent that was left out. Because what is the child trying to do? It's on the board.
Get the unconditional love.
What is the child trying to do? What are we all trying to do?
Go back
Back
into
to
the.
We go back into the womb, but actually even beyond that, go back into the cosmic womb. We're all trying to become whole. Remember I told you, we are fragmented dual selves. There's 100 eyes in us. There's 12 archetypes that can manifest in a gazillion ways. James at work is one person. At school, he's another. With his kid, he's another. With his spouse, he's another. With his friends, he's another. We all are constantly wearing masks depending on the situation. So none of us are unified. Our authentic self is when we are unified, when we are whole. So what we're really trying to do is take this and go back to wholeness. Do you remember when I told you about addicts?
Mm-hmm.
I said addicts want to go back to the womb. This is the toxic womb. The toxic, this is the womb. This is the cosmic womb. It's whole. Call it God, the heavens, the cosmos, I don't care. That is whole. There's no crack in the egg. Then your parents conceive you and there's a crack. And it's toxic because your mother's having anxiety or bad days or good days or whatever. And we think that what we want is to go back to the womb. There's a gentleman, an Ayurvedic doctor, out of New Mexico who writes a lot of books. And he says that the child is always spending their life trying to get back into the womb. Well, yes, I think our behavior dictates, but I think that our soul really wants to come back here. And according to the Bible, that's what happens when you die. What is it? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And your bones and your earth stays here, and your soul goes back and sits in the kingdom of heaven. We can have that alive. That's why we're rebirthing. So we come from this toxic womb, and we keep repeating the stories from here to here. And our life is simply a cycle between our childhood and what happened in the pregnancy, conception, birth, and 0 to 7. And we try, and we're keeping going back. And we keep going back. But we're never going to get healed if we keep focusing on getting back into the womb. So every single time that a situation, a person, place, thing, or situation shows up in our life that is not good, that is not healthy, we go back to this. So Rebecca lived at home with her mother. The dad was gone in his truck driving business. Who was the outsider of the system? The dad. So the child wants to be whole. How that Lindsay Lohan movie with the twins?
Parent trap.
Parent Trap. What were the girls trying to do? Get their parents back together. Every person's dream is to get their parents back together. It's symbolic. Has nothing to do with the two people. I think Paula the other day said that she told her dad to divorce her mom a gazillion times. On paper in this earth. But symbolically, we want our mother and our father together. Because what happens if the egg and the sperm are reunited? We go back to wholeness. It is a symbolic desire. You might hate your father and your mother and father should not be together. But the child wants them together because it represents their own wholeness. It's the only way, on paper, in the mind. If you get your parents back together, the child thinks, then I can get out of this horrible triangle that I'm living. Over and over and over for the rest of my life. And I can go back to this, which is wholeness, and then all my problems are solved. So Rebecca's father is here because he's the outcast of the system.
Because he works too much.
In this particular case, he worked, he wasn't around. Sometimes the one who's gone could be the pedestal parent and could be the one that the child, it could have been the father and her and the mom and the outcast. What if Rebecca would have been calling him all the time? Oh, Daddy, when are you coming home? Oh, Daddy, I drew you a picture. Oh, Daddy, this. And then the mom is like, oh, your dad is such a great dad. Love your dad. Call your dad. The mother herself is participating and push, 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 push. The alliance could have been between Dad and Rebecca. And then the mom is outcast. So, in the model, person, place, thing, or situation, and you ask the client, is it your mother or your father? Which one do you think is most likely going to show up? The one that you had the alliance to, or the one that's the outcast? The outcast. Most of the time.
Yeah, I didn't have either one. So.
Well, you have both. So most probably for you, parent, place, thing, or situation that shows up will be either or. You have a 50-50 chance if you didn't have any alliance.
Yeah, I didn't have a
Okay, but you always have an answer to that question. Because all you're ever doing is creating a situation so that you as the child in your subconscious get to make the family whole again. It has nothing to do with making the physical family whole. It has to do with you getting permission to use your Nordstrom's card instead of your inauthentic Costco card. You don't want to be a member. You want to be your own self. But unless you get this figured out and take it to this, you don't get permission. And it's never going to happen. It's only going to happen when this happens. What is this?
Alliance on all sides? I don't know what the A stands for. Just guess.
Okay, alliance on all sides, that's a good one. Okay, adult, adult, adult. When your mother is an adult, your father is an adult, and the child's an adult. And I'm not talking about age.
Right.
Because there are many babies that are in their 70s, and there are many adults that are 10. This is about transactions. Remember we talked about transaction analysis? If I treat you like an adult, then we have an adult-adult relationship. If I treat you like a child, so we're all adults, and go, Paula, and you know, and you allow me as a client, then now I have taken your power. Because I'm treating you down, I'm treating you like a child. And that happens with parents. Some parents elevate their kid to adult status and let the kid make a decision of where they're going to dinner. Oh, I don't fucking think so. You're the adult, be the fucking adult. And others don't let their 20-year-old wash their own fucking laundry. No, fuck you.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think so. So those are transactions that are dysfunctional. They fall into this. The only way to heal this is if all three people in the system are being treated as adults. This is the hardest thing to do. Because guess whose job it is to treat the parents like adults,
You.
Oh, yeah.
the child.